This is the old man here, coming to you with another rant. I want to talk to you a little bit about grooming. Now, I'm not referring to personal hygiene, which is important in itself, but I'm talking about a different kind of grooming altogether. I'm referring to something that's happening in our schools across this great nation of ours. I still call our country, the United States of America, a great nation, even though we're having some troubles right now. But that doesn't mean that if we all pull together, it can't be great again. See, somewhere along the line, political and otherwise, someone has decided that the best way to promote their ideas and agendas is to make us all enemies of each other, of people who are different. And I don't buy that. I enjoy watching Candace Owens. I think she's great, insightful. There's another lady, her name is, I believe, Amal. I can't think what her last name is, but she's also very insightful. I also like to watch Chad Prather, who's a comedian slash activist. He has his own pod show. Uh, and you probably notice that the people I watch are on a conservative level. That doesn't mean if I saw something insightful from someone who is a Democrat slash liberal that I wouldn't listen to them, but it doesn't necessarily mean I have to agree with them. Somewhere along the line, people have came up with the idea that you have to agree with me or we're enemies. No. We are all, if you're in the United States of America, we are all family. Every American is your brother, sister, mother, brother, whatever. So like when I was in the military, we had in our unit blacks, whites, Asians. Uh, I'm not even going to talk about religious background because that's something we just never talked about. But it didn't matter what our differences were, we all stood together. But now, what they're doing, in another way to further their evil agendas, is they're going after our kids. They're being pawns of Satan, and they are attacking our kids where it hurts the most. Another podcast that I watch is called The Grassroots Army, and I suggest people watch that because they actually, most of the videos I've seen deal with school board meetings, and the subject of what they're doing at these meetings is just appalling. Now, I do have a degree in elementary education. I have taught in public schools. I had an interim position as a first grade teacher. And I'm going to tell you what we taught. We taught English, reading, writing, science, social studies. These are the things what we taught. And every day, and this was in 2009, we were still saying the Pledge of Allegiance every day. But now, things have changed. I mean, sure, they're teaching those subjects, but they're also catering to the 1%. Now, I understand that they want to try and protect certain people if they, like, every person should be able to live the life we're supposed to. And nobody should be bullied. I fully agree with that. But when you're sticking up for the 1%, but you're forgetting about the 99, which leads me to a quick side story, because Jesus went out, talked about as a shepherd, if you had 100 sheep and one wandered away, you're supposed to go and search for that one. You're not forgetting about the other 99, because you're going to bring that one back to the herd, to the flock. Well, now we're concentrating on the 1%, and we're completely forgetting about the 99, because what they are doing in our public school systems, if they are grooming our children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren into the LGBTQXYZ NMLP agenda. They are force-feeding this stuff to children as young as elementary school. And I suggest that if you're a parent, or even if you're not a parent, or you just care about what's going on in your neighborhood, you need to go to at least a school board meeting and see what's going on. See if these things are happening in your schools. I've seen many videos of children who have gone into the school library, elementary school, mind you, and found books which are basically pornography. They shouldn't be in your school to begin with, and yet you have kids and parents who are fighting to get these books removed. It shouldn't be that hard to get these things out. If I was mayor or governor or whatever, I'd say these books need to be removed. Now, I'm not talking about banning books, no. But you need to know your place. I wouldn't even have these books in high school. They have no reason to have this kind of sexually explicit material inside a public school. Schools are for learning about your curriculum, which is going to help them get a job so they can support their families when they get out. I mean, you're always going to have stuff like sex education and health classes, which is different because as you get older and as you're adjusting, your body changes, and that's when they have these classes to help the students to prepare for those changes that are happening in their bodies. But when you have classes and books and libraries which tell students how to have oral sex, or just because you're a boy doesn't mean you have to stay a boy. I mean, it's ridiculous. These types of materials have no place in a school. And before anybody starts attacking me because they think I'm promoting my own agenda, I have seen a couple other videos which agree with me from people who you would think would be on your side. I saw a video of a drag queen who said kids should not go to drag shows. And what this performer said was, it's not so much you should have to worry about a drag queen reading to your kids. The part you have to worry about is why would a drag queen want to read to your kids? And I'm going to go on a side tangent real quick. There was a lot of libraries across the country that are doing this so-called drag queen story hour. And it's not just these drag queens reading to the kids. Some of them are doing some pretty sexual type things. And in the city where I live currently, they had an alternative, which there's a Christian actor and author who has written a book, and there were several libraries which were giving them a snub. Well, a couple of the ones, they kind of changed their tune, and then the city where I live, they welcomed them in. But what they did was uncalled for. Because it wasn't just him, there was the daughter from Duck Dynasty was there. She had a book, and there's a couple other Christian type authors who were there. And they had a line, circling around the library of people to come see them. So when they came in, everybody was, giving them encouragement and all that. But what happened is when they got in there, before they were going to do their thing, they were doing these little sound bites for their podcast. And as they were doing that, these people in the library were yelling across the library and cranking up music. And when they were asked very politely if they could turn this music down so that they could finish their podcast, they gave the very stupid answer, well, we don't control the music and we can't do it without authorization. And they were basically being rude to the people who were trying to do this thing because they were countering the drag queen thing. But yes, you had a drag queen who's saying, why would drag queens want to read to kids? And then there was a video today which I saw, which was on this podcast I told you, the Grassroots Army, where they had a guy who addressed the school board. And he said that he was a part of a group called Gays Against Grooming. And he said their organization was completely appalled because of the kind of materials that were in the schools, the ones like I mentioned. And he said these kind of sexually explicit materials should not be in any school. So I asked, why are they? Why is this stuff in those schools in the first place? And if you have kids or grandkids ever and they're coming and telling you that this stuff is in there, you need to make a stand. You need to go to the school board, go to your mayor, go to the governor. Write to the president of the United States. I doubt he'll do anything because he's a pervert himself. But right? You have to let your voices be heard. You need to stand up. You cannot allow these people to do this stuff to our kids because it's affecting kids, and it's not good. You get people who are kids who are confused by this bombardment of information that you're getting about sexuality, and teachers who are saying there are more than two genders, and you don't have to stay a boy if you want to be a boy. You can be a cat if you want to, and all this kind of weird stuff. And it's interesting because in one of these things I watched, they actually said that gender dysphoria is actually a mental condition. Think about that, a mental condition. So you have educators who I respect a lot because I have a degree in this profession and I've taught in this profession. But that has no place in public schools. This is the kind of thing that they need to be talking about with their parents. And if the parents aren't equipped to do it, then they can need to take your kid to a specialist because it's not what schools are for. I mean, if you had a girl when I was a kid and she felt more comfortable around the guys and was rough and tumble and played sports and all that, there's a name for that, called a tomboy. But then a lot of times, once those girls hit puberty, it didn't necessarily mean that they stopped being interested in sports, but a lot of times, those girls were now interested in guys, and that took up a lot of their time too. So, same thing with boys. You might have some boys who might not have been the big macho kid. They preferred more quiet pursuits. And it was kind of cool, but they used to call those boys sissies. And sometimes those boys grew up to be men who were pretty darn big or whatever, and they were not homosexual. They didn't think they were girls. They went on to become successful men in their business and were very masculine. You know what I'm saying? Our society today, and I saw this today, actually, a couple hours ago, where women are applauded for being strong, tough bosses. But men are ridiculed for doing what comes naturally to them. Men are being applauded for being more feminine. But women are ridiculed for doing what comes naturally to them. And this whole cisgender stuff needs to stop because I know a lot of women who it's really ticking off and they're saying there is no cis about it. They say, I'm a woman, or a guy will say, I'm a guy, that's it. There is no other thing. And when people say, well, how do you know you're a woman? Get naked and stand in front of a mirror. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's simple biology. If you have two X chromosomes or an X and a Y chromosome, then you know what you are. Well, but I don't feel, it's nothing about feelings. Who you are has nothing about feelings. we've allowed society to twist us so much that feelings have become more important than facts. Think about that. Feelings over facts. I mean, there was a time in my younger days when I felt like Superman, that I was unbeatable. But I didn't go jumping off a building to see if I could fly. It's the same thing. And people don't know it is the same thing. Think about it. We are twisting our kids' minds and confusing them. I've seen several stories about kids that are bombarded with all this stuff about sex in schools, and little kids girls, who think that they're a boy. Well, first they think they're gay because they seem to be attracted to boys. They seem to be attracted to girls. And then when they keep getting all this stuff, they say, well, information, they think, oh, well, I must be a boy. That's what it is. That's why I'm attracted to girls, because I'm a boy. But then somehow, during this whole process, with some of these people, some of these girls had mutilation done to their bodies. And this is when they're still in school. And if this is happening to those kids, then you gotta blame the parents on that too, because they're like, well, I gotta support my child. No. It's a job as a parent to protect your child, nurture your child, and help them to become good human beings. If a child decides to walk into a car, you're not gonna let them do it because that's not smart. When kids are young, you tell them not to play with matches. It's the same thing. You're there to protect your child. Don't put these weird ideas in kids' heads when they can't do anything. So, with that in mind, I encourage you to go to your school board meetings. If your town has town hall meetings, you need to go to that. If you say things which are going on with your children, because part of the stuff is when they're doing this stuff in schools, if a kid confides in a teacher or a counselor and says that they feel like the other gender, what's happening is they're not telling the parents. They're the ones who should be telling the parents so that the parents could actually sit down with the kid and maybe help the kid figure things out. But they're keeping things from the parents. If I was a parent and that was happening to my kids, they'd be at school, have major lawsuit against the school, the teachers, the school board, everybody. So you need to do your research so you can protect our young. Each generation of parents always say the same thing, that children are our future. Well, they're not going to be our future if we keep messing them up. When I first got into teaching, there was a thing which second President Bush started called No Child Left Behind, which is good in concept, but I knew of a lot of teachers who did not like it because you weren't actually teaching to the class. What you were teaching was a test, because they all have to take this test at the end of the year so that they can move on. It's not real education. They need to let things go back Bring back real discipline in school and in the homes. The kids are bad, spank them. The kids are bad in school, spank them. I knew that, they had suspensions when I was in school. I never had it, but kids who would do something wrong would get suspended. Well, in my school, they kind of got onto that because they would do in-school suspensions, where the kids would have to sit in the office and do their homework. So they might not have been hanging around their friends, but they were still there in school. If you have something going on, if a teacher sees something going on with a child, they should be talking with the parents. Period. The whole pronoun thing is stupid. If you're a male, it's him and he. If you're a female, it's her and she. But now, you get people who say that they're non-binary, but one day they feel like a female, one day they feel like a male, and sometimes they don't feel like either. It's like, really? And some of them call themselves them and they. You know who else calls themselves them and they? Demons. You're thinking, whoa, what you doing here? You're going completely off. What are you talking about? But I'm not. Every time it talked about Jesus in the Bible where he commanded the demons to leave an individual, they would always refer themselves by the pronouns them and they. Just something to think about. Do your research. Protect your kids. Try to make a stand if you really care about your future. God bless. Old man out.